Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Not the greatest few days. I don't think I can start the same way as the last video. Didn't want to win that cup anyway, because it would have been great to win the FA Cup again. And just literally as I'm starting this, the FA Cup draw just came out. And I know it doesn't really work like that, but Villa have been drawn at home against Cardiff. And I don't think it works like that at all. I think it would be a different number for Spurs if they were in it. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. But yeah, not a good few days at all, really. 3 days, 2 cup competitions exited. It's just a really, really bad couple of days. We kind of felt, okay, back-to-back wins, back-to-back clean sheets. Okay, starting to see something. And then these last 2 cup games have been so poor in a lot of ways. And look, there is underlying stuff. Of course, there is. This is Tottenham. There's always underlying stuff in some regard. And to be honest, Postecoglou, that's probably the most passionate I've seen him after a match. He kind of was really defending his players. It was almost like the anti-Conte rant at Southampton. Conte's one was very much criticising the players, criticising the club, whereas this one was more Postecoglou kind of almost, I'd say to a degree, laying himself down in front of the players to say, don't blame them, but then also indirectly kind of saying you can't really, if you can't judge them, but obviously by extension you can't really judge him if that's what he's saying. Although you can, there's definitely, we'll talk about that. I think there was a real hope that they would have some players back for that cup game, especially the Villa game, and it just didn't materialise. I asked him ahead of the game. I said, you've got 7, I think maybe, I'm trying to remember if the last video contained that or not, but I think I asked him, you said you had a load of players back in 7 to 10 days. We're kind of 7 to 10 days on. Are you disappointed that, I think he just said that he would have nobody fit and fresh back? And I said, are you disappointed you haven't got any of those players? And he was like, no, I meant kind of next week. But then after the game did seem to indicate that he kind of had hoped a couple of might be back. I think it's here actually. I think I've got the quote. He said, that's the timing of things. Just unfortunate for us that we couldn't get a couple back. We were hoping to get a couple back for this last week and it didn't happen. We could have risked a couple, but with what's ahead, we went conservative on that. It is a bit of a reset. We'll get 3, maybe 4 players back this week with the possibility of 1 or 2 others in the week or 2 after that. More importantly, this group that has been going gets a rest. They can go a whole week now without having to get up for another game. We got back from Liverpool at 2 a.m. on Friday, the early hours of the morning, so they can get some rest they desperately need physically and mentally. And he was asked, how damaging has the 2 cup exits been in a couple of days for him? And he very quickly said, it's not damaging for me. It's obviously disappointing for us in terms of our objectives. But for 2.5 months, this small group of players have given everything in multiple competitions. I think they've been outstanding. We had 11 first-team players missing today. We started with 4 teenagers, a 21-year-old goalkeeper coming to one of the best teams in the country, away from home, after playing the best team in the country on Thursday night, after playing a Premier League game last Sunday, playing a Europa game before that. The same group of players, no rotation, and they've been doing this since the middle of November. I think they've given everything they can, and I've got so much respect and admiration for the players and how they've gone about that. We get a couple of midweeks off now. Great for them to recover. We'll get some players back, which is also great for this group that they'll get some help and we move on. Postecoglou is not blameless in all of this at all. Sunday's defeat, I think, showed more than ever, yesterday's defeat showed more than ever that his system doesn't work without the energy required. You need to press, you need to hassle. The attacking players need to be constantly moving and providing options. There were so many times, again, I don't know if you all noticed it, but when they were taking throw-ons, something so simple, they're taking throw-ons, no one really showing themselves for the ball. It requires far more discipline than his team gave on the day. They were too open, yet despite not having the energy to really do that. And that's part of this as well. Of course, is there a way that he could have structured things slightly different? I mean, they played so well against Brentford, and all the good things they did in that have not been translated to the next couple of games, even though, at Brentford, it wasn't full-flowing attacking football that was going to be draining them. It was just more certain moments. And I think that's what's most disappointing is they weren't able to continue that. Anfield did feel it was a touch of stage fright, nerves, whatever you want to call it, just like, oh, we're never going to be able to beat this lot. But I kind of felt that seeped into yesterday's game as well. There was almost a sense of being defeated before the game had even begun. I mean, they conceded, was it 57 seconds? I do think there was a carryover in that. And of course, that does fall on Postecoglou as well. He needs to get psychologically, he needs to get them away from that. And it did feel like, especially first half, the team looked quite structureless. They were really, you could drive a bus down the middle of that midfield too much. Midfield were completely anonymous first half, constantly out of position, failed to protect the defence. And yeah, the problem is every time they lose the ball, you look at the positions of the other, let's say a midfielder loses the ball, the other two midfielders are right up next to them. And there's no reason for that to be the case. It doesn't have to be the case. Whether that is, again, through Postecoglou telling them to do that, or whether they're just not doing what he's asking them, either way, it's not good. And it's the kind of display when they're playing like that that gives the Postecoglou critics ammunition, because they can look at it and say they're too open. And they absolutely were. They could have conceded a hatful of goals in that first half, especially. And then there's Pedro Porro. Pedro Porro, who played at Brentford it was quite successful, this quite restrained game. We kind of spoke about this, how he had Mikey Moore ahead of him, 17-year-old boy who's not going to be able to physically do the kind of defensive work that needs to be done, and probably hasn't got the energy at the moment to track back as well. He's probably not got those kind of fitness levels yet. But yet, at Brentford, Porro played a far more restrained version of the way he normally plays. Unknown reason, whether through fault or design, he kept bombing on yesterday and kept getting himself caught up the pitch. And the first goal comes because he, as many occasions, left everyone behind him exposed. And it's maybe different if you've got Basuma and Sarr are quite good at filling in that gap. Bentancur is maybe trying to be too all action, and he isn't there to do that. Someone's job has to be to fill in if he is going to do that, and they weren't. And 57 seconds in allows loads of room for Jacob Ramsey to run into. Has a shot. Yes, Kinski had an absolute mare with it. It kind of just deflects off him and goes in. We'll talk about him because I did feel that he kind of regathered himself a little bit and probably kept Spurs in the contest. But yeah, it wasn't good enough in a lot of the structural elements of the team, and that's, I guess, the one thing that Postecoglou can control. But look, I do take a lot of what he said in his press conference kind of to be fact, as he said. There's a lot going on at Spurs right now, and as he continually says, this is the problem, isn't it? We're all getting so bored of hearing about it, and he's getting bored about talking about it, and I'm getting bored about talking about it. But it doesn't make it any less of a fact the fact that if you take so many key players, he had 11 unavailable players yesterday. If you take that many key players out of any team, they're going to struggle. And I think that was probably kind of shown yesterday by Liverpool. Liverpool went to Plymouth, changed up their team massively, left pretty much almost everyone that started against Spurs weren't involved. And lo and behold, they lost at Plymouth. And actually, they did similar in the Champions League against PSV a little while back with a much changed side, and they lost. And as Postecoglou would say, and I think he did say, try doing that every 3 days for 3 months and see how your season goes. So it's absolutely true. It is. Postecoglou's not blameless, but there is a massive element of the team not being the team and not being able to be what he wants them to be as well. And I do think there is certainly seems to be some understanding of that still within the club. And we're kind of getting to the crux now of this time where they are starting to come back. And as he said, take a back four of Vicario, Dragic, Romero, Van der Ven, Doggy, Maddison, Johnson, Solanke, Odegaard, Werner. He actually forgot Richarlison as well. Take them out of any team. How did Liverpool go today? And they did that for just one game. Do that for 2.5 months. Any team. Do that for 2.5 months in multiple competitions. I don't care about me. People will judge me, but you can't judge this group of players on what's happened. They've given everything, that performance. Like I said, two 18-year-olds, a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 21-year-old goalkeeper starting against one of the best teams in the country at home. They've had a week off. They didn't play Thursday night against Liverpool. That's Villa he's talking about. We did. Same group of players. Not a change. You can't measure this group of players on that and their performance where they're at. It's too easy for people to be critical of them. I just have huge admiration and respect for them. We kind of knew this game was going to be the finishing line because we knew what was coming ahead in terms of midweeks off and getting some players back. But they tried their hardest, and that's all you can ask. I guess the problem for Postecoglou now is we know about Daniel Levy's itchy trigger finger. It kind of gets especially itchy on average every 18 months when you look at the list of many managers or head coaches that have worked under him. And will it twitch again? You know, will he get the chance to finally work with these players that he's been waiting weeks for, Postecoglou? Some cases months for. I guess much depends on whether Levy has been reserving his judgment due to Spurs' progress in the cup competitions. Was it all about that? Or was it because of what is, let's be honest, the worst and probably most prolonged injury crisis the club have had in recent memory? As we've said before, there's also the fact that there are very few options out there right now. Any kind of ones that maybe would come mid-season, I think on the whole you're probably looking at a shift in football back to what Spurs fans weren't too keen on before. And yeah, I mean, the other option, of course, is you give it to Ryan Mason. But I think if you were to give it to Ryan Mason for a third time, that's just kind of an embarrassing admission of failure for Levy. And I think there would also be a certain cruelty in denying Postecoglou the chance in the next game, at least, if not the next couple of games, to prove whether everything he's saying is actually true or not. Whether getting them all back is going to reset the season. Is it going to change the way they play? Is it going to give fresh belief and morale to the group who are just so jaded and battered and tired and bruised looking? Because kind of get all these players back and then saying to someone else, no, it's your turn. It's kind of like football torture to Postecoglou. It's almost like letting him bear all the brunt and the pain of everything that's gone recently and then letting someone else finally enjoy a bit of an easier ride. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I did feel he played his press conference quite cleverly in that he was very passionate. You know, all this talk about he's not looking people in the eye and stuff like that comes out. He very much was. This was fiery to a degree of not being like aggressive and didn't raise his voice at any point. It was more kind of born of frustration and belief in his players and what they've had to go through, and kind of mainly taking shots at the pundits and the media, praising the players, saying they can't be judged, and like I said, kind of indirectly suggesting at the same time, well, then I can't really either, despite the fact he never actually said that. And he actually clearly said, I'm not talking about me. People can judge me. They can say I've done a bad job, I'm not up to it, or whatever, that's fine. What I'm saying is you can't be critical of players or players' performances at this time, because if you do, then do that with everyone else. Be as critical of other clubs when they've got 9 or 10 or 11 players out, and none of them have, and have to play every week, and not for one game. And I'm not just saying we had to do this today. I think when he says not for one game, I think he's talking about Bournemouth there, because Bournemouth had quite a few players out, but they've retained most of their key players, and they're playing one game a week. I think that's what he's trying to say there. He said, I'm not just saying we had to do this today. We've been doing this since the middle of November, and you can't judge performances of these players and critique them on what they've done. All they've done is given all they can, and that's all you can ask for. Me, as in my future, that's not of any interest to me. My responsibility at this football club is this group of players and this team to get them to play in the manner I want them to and bring us success. Whether people think I can do that or not, that's for others to judge. But there's got to be a better appreciation for what a very small group of players have been doing for the last 2.5 months. It can't be that people think that's an excuse. That's just not anywhere near close to objective analysis. That's just agenda-driven stuff. If it's to get rid of me, that's fine. Good on you. Go for it a million times. But in terms of this group of players, what they've given over the past 2.5 months has been outstanding. It's a credit to them, and I can't speak highly enough of them. So yeah, this was probably the strongest attack he's made on the outside world. This was something kind of Mourinho has done quite famously at various clubs, is create a them and us scenario. And I think that's what he's trying to do, while also, I guess, retaining the support of his players, which is going to be important if he is going to, continue in the role. And yeah, I don't know. It's really difficult to see whether that is going to be the case. Like I say, I do think it would be quite cruel not to give him at least this weekend, see where they're at with fresh players back and a full week of training and rest. The players are not in today or tomorrow. They're actually going to get those players that have been playing non-stop have actually got a couple of days to just recharge. And it's going to be crucial. And it should, in essence, bring a completely different Tottenham Hotspur against Man United. We've had it before with Man United against Spurs at home being a big game. El Sacchio, I think they called it, didn't they? When it was Nuno against Solskjaer, wasn't it? And Solskjaer. And Nuno did end up going after that. So it's going to be a big one. It kind of, he needs to show that everything he's saying is reflected in what he can do with a fuller squad. And then I think Ipswich away, isn't it? So, yeah, and the agenda stuff is interesting. It definitely was one way to go. And I do feel like, we've said it before, I do feel like people are kind of just don't want to hear the injuries thing anymore. And like the Richie Wellens comment, which he had a pop back at him. Postecoglou just saying, well, he's had his 5 minutes of fame there, or 5 minutes, he said. It is kind of almost become this joke, almost, that Postecoglou is going to talk about injuries. But it's like, there are so many injuries. It is just mad. It is. I'm even bored just saying it now, talking about it now. And I can understand, I see it. I see fans kind of getting bored of it being an excuse and that the team still should play better. And I do agree to a certain extent. I do think there's certain things they can't do because they're that tired. But I do feel that they should be better set up and structured still. Absolutely. Yeah. Like I say, I think he knows there's many casual observers now that are getting tired of the whole injury talk. But also a growing number of Spurs fans that are kind of so despondent at the results, I think, that they're looking at Postecoglou as using as an excuse to kind of mask his own struggles. And definitely we could hear some of the frustrated travelling fans at Villa Park were singing for Pochettino, who, let's be honest, has been one of the many previous Daniel Levy fall guys. He's probably the one that's come closest to managing to achieve something with a club that nobody else has been able to do for decades. Of course, the chants that were mainly heard were the ones about Levy, whether it be the Kulusevski one that has become a popular chant, or whether it was just the simple, we want Levy out chant that has been used a lot. There was plenty of gallows humour as well, talking about how bad the team was, or singing about how bad the team was. And yeah, he was asked whether he was worried that the team are just not playing the football he wants them to, regardless of the injuries. And he kind of put his hands on his face and he just just did this exasperated kind of laugh. And he said, I just don't know how else to explain it. He said, I don't know how else to explain it if you can't see that this team is just trying to play its hardest in the most extreme of circumstances. 2.5 months of asking 18-year-olds and 17-year-olds and senior players with no rest to play Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday. I'll keep going for 2.5 months. And if you think that is not at all a factor of how this team is performing, there's nothing else I can say. There's nothing else I can explain. So he was kind of followed up. But should some strands of his football still be visible? And he said, no. And he actually said it like that. No, because they're tired, mate. Do you think they can press like they would? If we hadn't played Thursday night and I hadn't rotated the team, do you think we wouldn't have been pressing aggressively today? Fair chance. There's a fair chance. Unless you don't think they're human beings. Unless you're superhuman and you think, no, after playing Liverpool on Thursday night, they should be flying tonight. It doesn't happen. They're human beings. Why do you think Liverpool and others rotate 11 players? Why? There's a reason. And I wish we could do that. Sorry, I wish I could do the same. So you bring a freshness to the team. Of course, they're not playing anywhere near the levels that we want or expect, but that's not because they're not trying. It's because they can't. I think this group of players, once we get the rest of the group in, will be an outstanding team. I have no doubt about that. Whether other people can't see it, that's of no interest to me. If you want to measure anything on what they're doing at the moment, other than the extreme situation they're dealing with, then I think your analysis is skewed and it's not objective. That's my opinion. And it's quite interesting. You could take all of that, and it's actually only crossed my mind. I didn't even write this in my post-match stuff. But you could argue that everything he's saying there, maybe he's also saying to the powers that be. That, he's actually saying that to Daniel Levy, I guess. It's like, if you're going to judge this team and how we are right now in any other way, then we're absolutely done for in terms of numbers and energy levels. And there's probably loads of players carrying injuries as well, just there's no alternative but to play on. Then, that's just wrong. Maybe he is saying it to them as well. Maybe that is almost his kind of pitch, his case for the defence to the powers that be, maybe. And like I said, he's battled through this stage of the season. And, you used the expression a couple of weeks ago about there being a light at the end of the tunnel, but every time it's pretty much been an oncoming train. Now it kind of feels like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. He is getting to this stage where, it should be a load of players kind of coming back at this point. I mean, just getting to that point, it would be pretty brutal to not at least say, okay, there's a United game then. Go for that. Show us if it's going to be different. I don't know. It's don't know the way football works and how, chairman's minds work, because you should have at least 3 or 4 back involved. I mean, there is going to be, it seems, a big protest. Maybe the biggest yet, perhaps, at the United game. Some more cynical than I might suggest that if you were to change the manager just ahead of that, it might deflect some attention away from that, and the fans might be like, oh, well, we've got to give support to this person or whatever. But I wouldn't dare suggest that because I'm not that cynical. Trust me. 21 years as a journalist, you become very, very cynical. And I don't think that would work anyway. I don't think you could deflect away from the disillusionment and anger a lot of people have towards Levy, the board, the owners, whatever you want to call it, the powers that be, the hierarchy. There's so many different ways of saying it. I don't think that would work. And I think I said it in my talking points, but I kind of it's my thinking really that there's only so many times you can change the doormat or paint the front of the house or the door. But if you're not going to improve what actually lies within the house, it doesn't make any difference. Many have come and failed to change the whole philosophy and culture within Tottenham Hotspur. But I guess how possible is that to do from like a midway vantage point? How much can a middle manager really transform everything that's obviously there and has been there, I guess, for whatever it is, almost a quarter of a century? It must be very difficult unless there's, I guess, a kind of a leadership group at the very top that are willing to go along with everything, with new ideas and stuff. And I don't know, they may argue that they have been. And that's maybe why Postecoglou has lasted through a period where results-wise other managers would have gone by now. Maybe there's an understanding of those injuries. Maybe there's an understanding of they are trying to change things within the club, but it's been cut off at the knees by what's happened with the injuries. I mean, there were a couple of little positives from the game. I would say it's probably the newer, fresher players, which is no coincidence whatsoever. Kevin Danso, I think, looks like a really good purchase. I think he's been, I'd go as far to say almost probably excellent, really. Bearing in mind what he's come into and thrown into it and he'd only played once in about 6 weeks. I think I remember looking up something like that. And I think not only has he got this aggression and he's good on the ball, they trust him with the ball in tight spots, but he's also got this kind of quite a strong personality as well. I saw him kind of going around to all the players. It's just such a silly little thing, but I saw him going around to the players as they were coming off from the warm-up, kind of just going around and kind of talking to them all, giving them high fives and all this sort of stuff. And I know that sounds silly, and I know people go, whoop-de-doo, wow. But it just kind of, that's a brand new player put into a situation. He's kind of making this point of not just being part of the number or the crowd or whatever, but actually going around and saying, come on, everyone ready kind of thing. And, you know, there was a suggestion that he is going to become a bit of a leader. And he is 26 years old. He's a fair bit older than many of these young players there as well. And I think he's maybe recognised they need that. I listened to a podcast he did with, I think it was Rising Ballers, which is good. It's an interesting insight. I still maintain that his voice and his accent is very much sounds like Eric Dyer. I don't know whether it's that kind of idea of having spent a long time in England, but also having grown up in other different countries, and it kind of ends up with this blended accent. I don't know. But if you close your eyes and listen to him, it sounds a bit Eric Dyer. Doesn't play like him. He's got a bit more pace about his game. And yeah, I've been really impressed with him, to be honest. And Mathys didn't think he was that great as a left winger. I thought he was giving the ball away, kind of set Villa away for a few good breaks when he just kind of loose passes. But he was trying. He's very enthusiastic, had good energy, and I did feel like he looked better when he moved into the central kind of position. And it obviously, quite rightly, you could say, should he have not played there from the start? And then it makes you wonder, you know, does he put away the chance that Son has in the first half? Possibly. Son, in a normal kind of time, would put that pass into the net from Mikey Moore. But his goal, was very good. Really good movement to get onto Kulusevski's cross. And, yeah, nice touch past the keeper. It gave us all, I don't know about you, but it gave us all this little bit of hope. Just with like 2 minutes to go. It was like 2-3 minutes to go of added time, and you could tell it got a little bit nervy in Villa Park, but they just wasted all opportunities really from that point. I think Son had a really good opportunity to sling a good free kick and just kind of lofted it straight to the keeper. Yeah, it wasn't good. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Tell's goal means that Spurs still haven't lost to any side other than Liverpool by more than a single goal. Weird and unexpected stat when you look at it all and where they're at and how they're doing. But yeah, I think it is, because Liverpool 2 results, but I don't think anyone else has beaten them by more than one goal. Hey, it's not a trophy. You don't get a trophy for that, and it's not a great thing to shout around. Hey, when we've lost, it's only been by one. Strange stat. Yeah, and he spoke about the two players. Of course, Tell's goal, shouldn't miss out, goal in the middle, didn't really mean anything ultimately because Porro had fluffed a bit of a clearance and the ball had come across the 6-yard box. Falls for Morgan Rogers to smash into the roof of the net. It was a shame, really, because the second half they did look better. Ibasuma came on, just gave them a little bit more in midfield. Obviously, he was very poor at Anfield, but I felt he was better yesterday. And he just had a bit more about them. The only times they were really getting caught were on the counter, when they were trying to push up and get something from the game still. But, he spoke about the two new players. He said, again, Postecoglou says it's been a situation where we've had to throw them in, unfortunately. It would have been nice to ease them in and get them used to it. I think Kevin's been brilliant since he came in, and great for Mathys to get his goal today. He hasn't played a lot of football recently, so for him to get 90 minutes at this level and score a goal will do him the world of good. I mentioned about Kinski earlier as well, the third of the January signings. Yeah, there's no getting away from it. It was poor goalkeeping, 57 seconds in. Did put Spurs on the back foot immediately, and you could see they drained in a bit of confidence. He definitely drained in a load of confidence for about the next 10 to 15 minutes or so. But I think massive credit to him, because he kind of recomposed himself, regathered himself, and he made a load of very good saves from that point on, which kind of kept them in the contest, really. Elsewhere in the team, yeah, it didn't really work. I mean, Jed Spence, of course, trying to provide energy, but I didn't feel like his link up with Tell really worked at all. They never really seemed on the same wavelength. Felt sorry for Mikey Moore, and I do. I feel like people keep calling for Mikey Moore to start, and I don't feel like the right time is in these big, difficult away games at a difficult time. I think Mikey Moore is an incredible young talent, but physically, he's not there yet. And you could see it at Brentford. I think he was up against big physical players and he struggled, really. Although, again, like at Brentford, he's still got that quality to have at least one big moment. And that's testament to how much quality he's got despite being just 17. And on this occasion, it was setting, Kulusevski set him away and it set Sonny up for a massive chance that he should have scored. He pretty much put it in the one place where it was going to be saved. The wingers, for me, Tell and Moore, there were too many times they were receiving balls on the halfway line. And I felt the one time we saw Mikey Moore go on a run and get picked up by Kulusevski, it just kind of showed you that's what they should be doing more of. So I kind of felt like Moore was heading towards a halftime sub, unfortunately. And it's kind of not fair on him right now. In a normal situation, with all these players that should be available in the squad, Mikey Moore would, in games like this, be coming on late and kind of up against tired legs, be getting a real chance to build and experience and understand. He will still develop and build a lot from what he's getting exposed to right now, but I think it would be better in a different way and playing in home games at Spurs and the ability to rotate and bring him in different kind of games. And I feel like, it's just all a bit unfair on him at the moment. I really do feel that way. Archie Gray, again, filling in as a centre-back to kind of give Ben Davies some kind of rest. And he did what he could. He made one terrific last-ditch tackle right at the end to stop Marcus Rashford having a shot at goal after he'd run through. And I watched that back and honestly, I shuddered. It was really painful looking. Rashford still takes his shot and he connects with Archie Gray's leg in such a way. I actually thought he was going to break his leg. And it wasn't intentional. He was having the shot. Rashford was involved in a few things, wasn't he? He caught Danso on the head and kind of he was bleeding. But yeah, this kind of unintended whack against Gray. Gray looked in a lot of pain. Fair play to keep going. I'm hoping nothing more comes of that because it did not look good. But yeah, I mean, just Rashford coming on with Asensio as well. Kept doing his pirouettes as well and taking a mickey. It kind of summed up two benches that were both under strength but strong in one key area for Villa because, Unai Emery had issues with his bench. He was only able to name 7 substitutes. I don't know why they didn't have any academy players, but he had 7 subs. Ended the game without a recognised centre-back as well. But in those 2 big January arrivals, Rashford and Asensio, he's got 2 players with huge experience to bring on in the areas you want to bring players on as well. With Spurs, you go across to their bench, and with no disrespect to him because he had an amazing debut, but their only attacking player to bring on was young 19-year-old Damola Ajayi, who we know has only got a handful of Europa League minutes to his name, including that lovely goal. There was no real options on there for him, and that's just been the way it's been for so long now. And it is boring to say, I know it is. It's boring to hear, it's boring to say, but hopefully these next couple of days off that the team have got, they'll return on Wednesday. They'll look out and they'll like, hey, he's back. Hey, look, he's back. And just instantly there's a new vibe in training. There's a new energy to training. And just things are that little bit different. And, even just having those couple of days rest, I do think it's almost as much mental as it is physical. You always see when kind of players are jaded and tired, you always get the classic kind of responses of, working 90 minutes twice a week. Oh, it must be so difficult. And then I even kind of less agree with it. Oh, if I was paid 100 grand a week or whatever, all this, and it's just like, it's not really how it works. It's accumulated fatigue, but also mentally. It's the mental thing about trying to perform at that level constantly when you're just absolutely knackered. And it is just kind of thrown away as it shouldn't be the case. Stop saying that. It's an excuse. And it's like, but it's a fact. You can say it's an excuse, but it's still a fact. It doesn't hide it away. It doesn't make it not real. And like I say, I don't want it to appear as if I'm just saying that's everything. It's not. I would say it's a hefty chunk, but there is also things that, Postecoglou isn't doing right, and there are things that he's, whether it is his structure or whether the players are just not able to do what they're asking, I don't know. But yeah, I just personally, I would like to see him given at least the United game, just to show what happens when you get some players back. And the Ipswich game, maybe Solanke's back as well. I don't know whether that falls into that wheelhouse. He said a week later to do for Solanke, but we'll see. Just to have these players back and what a difference it would make. And I know people will point to games where they had more players back and they didn't play well, but that just happens in a season. It's almost like those handful of games are being used as the barometer for everything that is Postecoglou and Tottenham. And I feel that's unfair because there are other teams out there in the league that have had full strength and have just not done it in certain games. But because they're the kind of something you look back to now, rather than the Man City game, rather than the win against United, even just most recently against Brentford, which is, was a really tough result to go and get. I kind of feel people are using those matches to kind of beat him with. And look, I get it. I understand why. I do understand it. Because if you're saying when we have the full squad will be better, and you can say, well, there's the full squad, it didn't work. But that's just football. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes a team frustrates the hell out of you and you can't find a way through. But I get it. I get the frustration. Trust me. We're all as worn down and fatigued as well right now. It's quite funny seeing this kind of group of travelling journalists that were at every game and, kind of my mad schedule coming back after the Liverpool one and then driving to and from Birmingham because there's no trains back. Again, not woe is me, but absolutely not, because I still love doing it. But you can see we're all, as a fan base, as the media, players and manager, all just like, ugh, right now. And I think we just all need the lift of new faces, fresh faces, and a positive result. And if it doesn't happen, then, Postecoglou will be able to say, okay, well, what I said would happen didn't happen. And I think, he'll just have to kind of live with that, I guess. But let's see if he gets to that stage. And I mean, you look at the ones that should hopefully be back. From what Postecoglou said in the last few days, you would imagine it's Vicario, Doggy, Maddison, Odegaard, Johnson, potentially. Odegaard, you'd imagine, must need more time after so long out. But yeah, even Unai Emery said after the game, of course, when they're going to recover players, they'll perform again like they were doing. But yeah, I guess for Postecoglou, he's just going to keep on cracking on doing what he's doing. And he was asked afterwards how he's going to spend this next week or so with this rarity of a midweek that doesn't have a match in it. And he said, I'm just going to keep on working like I have. The ones who have been playing, we've got to give them some time off. We've got the early part of the week and we'll give them some time off. The boys who are coming back, we'll get the opportunity to give them a whole week of training, which is great. So come Tuesday, we should have 3 or 4 who have been missing. We can give them a full week of training instead of a couple of sessions and then throwing them in. By the time we get to the back end of the week, we should have something resembling a squad of players to prepare for a big game. That then folds into the following week, when again we've got 7 days and no midweek game to prepare for the next game. So that gives us a real good opportunity to get some work into the guys who have been out for quite a while and give some rest to the guys who have been going at it. So by the time we get back to being in Europe and having midweek games, we'll be in a much better shape. And yeah, the question now is will Postecoglou be allowed? Will be allowed to get the chance to see his own team in a better shape, or will someone else get that opportunity to kind of profit, I guess, from the pain that he and the players have all gone through? He will probably feel that if he can he's kind of got to this stage, and if he can get through this week together, him with the squad, then they'll come out the other side, and that'll be the beginning. The reset is the word that keeps being used. But as always, the choice lies with Levy. He's under fire. He's got a lot of criticism of him. A lot of attention is turning his way, not just from the fans, from the media as well. It will be a big admission of failure if his latest manager has not worked either. So, yeah, it's going to be a fascinating week or so, and they still need to kind of get to the bottom of the whole Romero Van de Ven thing. That's not good. It's not a good look whatsoever. I asked him. Was it the last presser? They were starting to blend into one. It was either Wednesday's presser or Friday's one about, with Van de Ven, is it a case of discomfort or is it a case of fitness? And he said all of the above. And, they kind of they're going to have a bit more clarity on it. We're going to need to, I think that's definitely in this Friday's press conference is going to be kind of part of it because they're huge. They're two huge, massive players. Not only for Spurs, but also the Postecoglou system. And we need to kind of know exactly what's happening there. Just calling them both slow burners, slow healers, it's not a good look, I don't think, for the club either. It's so vague. It really is. So, yeah, we're going to need more clarity on that on Friday, really, because you can't just be hoping week to week one of them might come back. There's got to be more to it than that in terms of the, he said it wasn't a re-injury for Van de Ven, but obviously in the same moment is admitting that there is some discomfort there. So, yeah, that's got to be cleared up and sorted out. Yeah, that's it really. I mean, very, very quick loan roundup. Just because some people have been asking about that, I'm going to rattle through a few of them. Jan Min-hyuk, he's obviously at QPR, made his second appearance on Tuesday night, came on for the final 24 minutes. Their 2-1 win in the Championship against Blackburn. He played 14 minutes, I think, in the game before. 2-1 defeat at Millwall. And, yeah, looking at local press, lively was the word used. He got a 6 in the player ratings from West London Sport. So, yeah, that's good. It's a good start. In minutes, that's what he needs. He needs to adapt to the English game, and hopefully this will all be part of his process. Will Lancashire made his debut for West Brom. They won 2-1 at home against Sheffield Wednesday. The Expression star, he was only on for 23 minutes, but they gave him a pretty glowing first review. Said a really encouraging debut from the Tottenham lone teenager. Looks a proper physical unit and knows how to handle himself. Was involved in the opener. So that's good. That's great for Will Lancashire, and hopefully he pushes on from that. You might have seen that the Josh Keeley and Jamie Donnelly show continued onto the FA Cup stage as they took on Man City. I did tell people to watch it, and wow, Jamie Donnelly, that lovely, 45, 50 yards or so over the halfway line, just in front of it, has an effort that hits the bar, hits Ortega and goes in. Which was brilliant. Pep Guardiola said of him, what a goal. So assured. When you concede that goal, you can only congratulate the guy. He's an incredible left-footed player and scored a fantastic goal. How brilliant as a 20-year-old to hear that. I tweeted after the game, there is a part of me that just, I can't believe that Donnelly wouldn't have got game time during this period. I know with hindsight it's probably still better to leave him there, and the incredible development. I think he's played something like 31 matches for Orient already. The development for him will be huge when he comes back in pre-season in the summer. But there is a part of me that's like, he would have played so many minutes and he probably would have made an impact for Spurs. And Josh Keeley's just doing brilliantly. He did really well on Saturday as well. City eventually won it. Kusanov and De Bruyne got the goals for them. But, yeah, even Guardiola was praising him. He said, we were lucky at the end because they had chances, but we created a lot. Their keeper was really, really good, and it was a tight game. So that's those two. They are absolutely smashing it with Orient right now, Keeley and Donnelly. Brian Hill, he's at Girona. He's doing fine there. He's got 4 goals and 3 assists in his 28 matches for them. He got 67 minutes on Sunday as they lost 3-0 to Athletic Bilbao. Manor Solomon's doing really well at Leeds. He got another assist against Coventry on Wednesday. He was on the bench but came on as they went out the FA Cup to Millwall, I think it was, at home on Saturday. Got some praise though. I looked at the kind of Leeds live player ratings for him, and he was the liveliest of the initial group that came onto the pitch. 6-goal involvements in his past 6 matches, Manor Solomon. 3 goals and 3 assists. I still don't know whether there was a clause to bring him back. I don't know whether there was. A lot of these players as well, if there is one, it's early in the window so that the club can get someone back. Can get someone in to replace them. Alfie Devine, Luka Vuskovic, pretty much mostly watching roles of Westerlo at the weekend. Alfie Devine did come on for about 24 minutes. They won 4-2 at home to Standard Liège. Vuskovic was suspended again. He got a yellow card, accumulation of yellow cards he was out for. You might remember he got a red card ban. It was a very angry reaction at the final whistle. So he's missed 2 of the last 3 or 4 games through suspension. Alejo Veliz, he's getting minutes here and there, mostly off the bench for Espanyol. Came on at half-time at the weekend as they lost 2-1 to Real Sociedad. But yeah, he's 21 appearances. That's a massive success compared to last season, let's be honest. 4 goals, 3 of those Copa del Rey hat-trick. Alfie Dorrington got his full debut at the weekend for Aberdeen. They lost 2-0 at Hibernian. And then he came off the bench for 22 minutes in midweek. They had a Scottish FA Cup victory at home against Dunfermline. Sorry, on Sunday that was. Yeah, it's all senior experience for Alfie Dorrington. There's a great clip to get out on social media of him going on this run, which I've seen him do in one of the FA Youth Cup finals. He did it as well. He did it frequently. There's a great run he does right up the pitch from his box all the way to the other end of the pitch for Aberdeen. Yeah, he is a good young defender, and hopefully that's kind of the making of him, that move. Ashley Phillips is pretty much a near ever-present for them. However, they left him on the bench for the FA Cup game against Cardiff, and they lost on penalties, 3-3 after a normal time. Yeah, he's having a decent loan, albeit at a club that's kind of been a bit chaotic this season. Probably prepared for that by being at Spurs. George Abbott, 90 minutes of plenty for Notts County, keeps racking them up as well. They won 2-0 at home against Morecambe on Saturday. He's doing really well. 4 goals, 4 assists from 26 appearances, making a big impression there. Matty Craig, he's at Mansfield Town at the moment. Unfortunately, he made his debut, but then he's had a back injury since. They had a scan and it's all clear, just feeling some discomfort in it, and he hasn't been able to kind of play a part yet for them since then. It means he'll miss their playing Wednesday night against Orient. So he would have been up against Donnelly and Keeley. Who else we got? Luca Gunter. He's at Wealdstone. Tough game at the weekend. They lost 4-0 at home to Gateshead. But this is his first senior experience of football. He's already made 4 National League appearances for them. And we'll be looking for plenty more minutes, no doubt, in the weeks and a couple of months ahead. So that's a loan roundup. Try to rattle through it because it's late. I've got to go and get my dinner. But also because I don't want this to be a long video. No one needs a long video right now with the way things are at Spurs. Let's see what happens though with a full week of training, 2 days off for those who have been overplayed. Feel like new players, fresh players coming back, and hopefully a bench, a squad, a team and a bench that has plenty of options for Postecoglou and more ability for them to play in the way he wants them to play. And yeah, like I said, if they can, United have had their struggles as well. And if he can, and Spurs can get a good result at the weekend, then it's like, okay, all right, well, what you said is starting to come true. And then you take that on to Portman Road, you go there, and you try and do similar, again, with a week in between to train and prepare. But if it all goes wrong, then there's no kind of where to turn, really. But yeah, let's see what happens first. Let's see. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Fingers crossed things get better. Because, yeah, it is a real it's a drag right now, isn't it? To just follow Spurs, whether that's through reporting or fandom. And it shouldn't be like that. So, let's hope things improve for the better. Right, time to head off. I'll be back with another video on Monday. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.